Hi, and welcome to Dalton Does DevOps. I'm Dalton, and this is the first episode in a series I'm calling AWS CDK A to Z. Before we get into any code, I want to take a few minutes to explain what the AWS CDK is and how it fits into the bigger picture of infrastructure as code. If you're already acquainted with these concepts, feel free to skip ahead to the next episode where we initialize our first CDK app. But if this is new to you, or you'd like a quick refresher, this is a good place to start. The AWS CDK, or Cloud Development Kit, is a framework that lets you define your cloud infrastructure using real programming languages like TypeScript or Python. Instead of writing long, static YAML or JSON templates, like you would with CloudFormation, CDK lets you use actual code with logic, variables, and structure to build and manage AWS resources. Behind the scenes, CDK still compiles your code into a CloudFormation template, so you get all the benefits of infrastructure as code, such as predictability and repeatability, but with a much more streamlined developer experience. Let's take a quick step back. What do we mean by infrastructure as code, or IAC? In short, it's the practice of defining your infrastructure, things like EC2 instances, S3 buckets, VPCs, using code rather than configuring everything manually in the AWS console. So why is that a good idea? For one, it makes automation much easier. You can integrate infrastructure into your CI/CD pipelines, run validations, and reduce the need for manual intervention. Second, it gives you version control. When your infrastructure is stored in Git, you can collaborate, track changes, and roll back when needed. Third, it's repeatable. Once you've written a setup in code, you can deploy it multiple times to different environments and get consistent results. And finally, it reduces human error. You're less likely to forget a setting or misconfigure a resource when it's all codified and reviewed. It's a core part of modern software delivery, and it brings real benefits in terms of reliability and speed. So why use the AWS CDK? The main advantage is that you're writing infrastructure in a general purpose language like TypeScript rather than a static markup format like JSON or YAML. That means you can use functions, loops, and variables, just like you would in any other application code. You can break things into modules, share logic across projects, and keep things well structured. Compared to raw CloudFormation, CDK is often easier to read, test, and maintain. And because it's code, it fits naturally into your existing developer workflows, version control, code reviews, testing, and automation. Before we install anything, here are a few assumptions I'm making in this series. 1. You're comfortable using your operating system's command line. 2. You'll be writing CDK code in TypeScript. 3. That you can install and configure development tools on your machine. And 4. That you have access to an AWS account that you can create infrastructure in. Assuming that's all true, here's what you'll need to get set up. Node.js. The CDK CLI runs on Node, and the CDK libraries are published as Node packages. TypeScript. You'll need the compiler to convert .ts files into JavaScript. The AWS CDK CLI, which you can install via npm. The AWS CLI, which handles authentication and deployment, and a code editor. I recommend Visual Studio Code. It has a great support for TypeScript and is lightweight but powerful. One extra tip would be to install the Prettier extension in VS Code. It'll format your code automatically and help keep things clean. When you create a new CDK project, it follows a predictable structure. The bin folder contains the app's entry point. This is the file CDK looks at when you run commands like CDK deploy. The lib folder is where you define your stacks and infrastructure constructs. And files like cdk.json and package.json handle project configuration and dependencies. This layout makes it easier to keep things organized, especially as your project grows. Here's how the CDK workflow looks in practice. First, you write your infrastructure using CDK libraries in TypeScript. Then, you run CDK synth, which generates a CloudFormation template from your code. Finally, CDK deploy hands that template off to CloudFormation in the AWS console, which provisions the actual resources. So even though you're working in code, the deployment itself is still handled in a safe, predictable way, fully managed by AWS. In this series, we'll cover all the foundational concepts you'll need to use the CDK effectively. You'll learn how stacks and constructs work. These are the building blocks of every CDK app. We'll explore the AWS construct library, which includes pre-built components for various AWS resources. I'll walk you through core commands like synth, diff, and deploy, and how they fit into your workflow. Later on, we'll go deeper, looking at parameters, context, environment, and how to create reusable custom constructs. And throughout, I'll share best practices for writing clean, scalable infrastructure code. Before we wrap up, here are a few common questions I often hear. Do I need to know CloudFormation to use CDK? And the answer is no, but it does help to understand the basics. You won't be writing templates by hand though, because CDK will take care of that for you. Can I use a different language? Yes, CDK also supports Python, Java, and C#. In this series though, we'll be using TypeScript, so you'll need to adapt any examples to your preferred programming language. And lastly, is this going to cost anything? CDK itself is free, and so are all of the tools that I mentioned, but AWS will charge you for any resources that you deploy to your account. We'll try and stay within the free tier for all of the examples. However, I will call out when anything might incur costs. That gives you a solid foundation of what the AWS CDK is and how it works. In the next lesson, we'll walk through setting up your environment step by step. Then we'll create your first CDK project, write a simple stack, and deploy it to AWS. If you found this content valuable, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next episode.